He slept for millennia. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the underworld, guardian of the dead, lord of the necropolis. His domain, the Duat, a shadowy mirror of the mortal realm. There he weighed the hearts of the departed against the feather of truth. He judged their worthiness for the afterlife. For eons his slumber went undisturbed, a forgotten deity in a world obsessed with the living. The year is 2024, New York City, a concrete jungle pulsating with life, oblivious to the ancient terror about to be unleashed. Skyscrapers scraped the sky, monuments to human ambition, dwarfed by the shadows soon to fall. The city that never sleeps was about to face a nightmare beyond its wildest imaginings.
So be it.
Panic surged through him, disorientation. Where was he? What year was it? He towered over the mortals, a figure of immense power and terrifying beauty. Blackened gold armor, polished to a mirror sheen, reflected the distorted cityscape back at itself. His eyes, like molten gold, burned with an eerie light, seeing not the living but souls ripe for reaping. Anubis stepped cautiously through the labyrinth of towering structures. Each mirrored surface reflected his fearsome visage back at him, a constant reminder of his isolation. Where were the supplicants, the offerings? Had the rituals of the afterlife been forgotten in his absence? He had expected to be greeted with reverence, fear, awe. Instead, there was only a deafening silence. Time, once a river flowing through his grasp, now felt like a prison. He was adrift in an endless present, surrounded by beings who lived and breathed, yet seemed oblivious to the eternal weight of their souls. He had walked the pathways of the underworld for countless ages, the weight of judgment heavy on his heart. But never had he encountered such a profound disconnect between life and death. Anubis raised his voice, the sound echoing with the authority of a forgotten god. His words, ancient and powerful, were pronouncements of truth in a language lost to time. He called out to the mortals, demanding answers, seeking recognition. But his words were met with blank stares, shrugs of indifference, and the dismissive flick of a hand. Some even pointed, their laughter like shards of ice piercing the veil of his divinity. Anubis, the divine shepherd of souls, found himself increasingly adrift in a sea of the uncomprehending. His patience, honed over millennia, began to fray. These beings, these creatures, were not as he remembered. They moved with a frenetic energy, their eyes reflecting a world of fleeting desires and trivial pursuits. He had spent eons weighing the hearts of the dead against the feather of Ma'at, the embodiment of truth and cosmic order. But these souls, if they were truly souls, carried a weight far stranger, a burden of ignorance and denial. A young woman, her laughter echoing through the crowded street, caught his eye. She was vibrant, full of life, her mortality worn with an almost defiant pride. She was everything these creatures were, oblivious, dismissive, lost in the ephemeral pleasures of the material world. He watched her, his ancient heart growing heavy with a terrible certainty. She was a soul ripe for judgment, a testament to the depths of their collective delusion. The woman's struggles began to attract attention. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, curiosity morphing into unease, then fear. Anubis, oblivious to their growing alarm, focused on the soul he held captive. He could sense the weight of her unreconciled deeds. The tangled threads of a life lived in ignorance of its true purpose. The woman in his grasp continued to struggle, her fear palpable, but it was the reaction of the crowd that truly gave him pause. They surged forward, a tide of human fury, their cries echoing his growing unease. This was not the way of things. The living did not challenge the will of the dead. The world watched in horror as Anubis, the ancient Egyptian god of the dead, walked the earth once more. News reports crackled with grainy footage, capturing glimpses of his terrifying majesty amidst the chaos. The silent terror of his first judgment gave way to a maelstrom of confusion and fear. His pronouncements, once ignored, echoed across the globe, translated and retranslated, each iteration adding to the growing sense of dread. Years bled into an unending nightmare. Cities crumbled under the weight of his passing. Armies, assembled in haste and desperation, fell before him like wheat before a scythe. He was a force of nature, an unstoppable tide of divine wrath. But with each passing season, a chilling truth began to dawn on him. He was not at war with the dead, he was at war with the living. And the living, for all their flaws, possessed a tenacity, a will to survive, that both impressed and dismayed him. Five years had passed since his awakening. 5 years of escalating chaos, of futile resistance, of unimaginable loss. The world stood on the brink, teetering between oblivion and a terrifying new reality. Anubis, the once revered god of the dead, had become the architect of their destruction. Yet, even as he waged war on a world that refused to understand, a seed of doubt continued to grow within him. Silence. A silence so profound, so absolute that it pressed upon the ravaged world like a shroud. Gone was the cacophony of war, the screams of the dying, the thunderous pronouncements of a god scorned. The air, once thick with smoke and ash, hung heavy with the metallic scent of blood and the lingering echo of fear. Anubis, the once unstoppable force of destruction, stood motionless at the heart of a shattered New York City. The once proud skyscrapers, now jagged teeth against the bruised sky, bore silent witness to his transformation. The once teeming streets of New York, now eerily deserted, echoed with the ghosts of his rage. He could still feel the echoes of their terror, their confusion, their desperate will to resist. He had sought to awaken them to their true nature, to guide them toward their inevitable end. Instead, he had unleashed a maelstrom of destruction that had nearly consumed them all. The silence that cloaked the world was not one of peace, but of anticipation. The survivors of Anubis's rampage whispered of ancient prophecies, of a time when the gods would walk the earth once more, bringing with them either salvation or destruction. Some saw his transformation as a sign of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Others viewed it as a harbinger of even greater darkness to come. Across the globe, in the hushed confines of temples and the shadowed corners of ancient ruins, other gods stirred. Word of Anubis's return, of his rampage, of his sudden and inexplicable transformation, had spread like wildfire through the hidden pathways of the divine. Some watched with amusement, their laughter echoing through the void, a chilling counterpoint to the silence that gripped the mortal world. Others observed with a growing sense of unease, their ancient hearts troubled by the implications of his actions. The world held its breath. The initial shock of Anubis's transformation had given way to an uneasy truce. The survivors rebuilt, their efforts fueled by a mixture of hope and desperation. The silence of their god was both a blessing and a curse. It offered a reprieve from the horrors they had endured, yet it also served as a constant reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead.
If you like this content, give me a like and subscribe for more like this. Leave a comment and tell me what you would like to see next. Until the next time, this was your host Daniel Hawkins, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Abysmal Mysteries.
So be it.